The hum of Chicago O'Hare International Airport buzzed around 16-year-old Jalen Carter as he stepped onto Flight 237 to Atlanta. His backpack slung over one shoulder, Jalen's eyes sparkled with excitement. This was his first solo trip to visit his grandparents. A straight-A student with dreams of piloting planes, he clutched his boarding pass, envisioning the day he'd sit in a cockpit. His economy-class seat, 23B, was nothing fancy, but to Jalen, it was a ticket to independence. As he settled into his aisle seat, adjusting his hoodie, a flight attendant named Karen, her gray uniform crisp with a blue scarf, eyed him from the galley. Jalen scrolled through his phone, texting his dad, Captain Marcus Carter, a 20-year veteran of the Chicago Police Department. Boarded. Ready for takeoff! Karen's gaze lingered, her lips tightening. Something about Jalen, his casual attire, his frequent phone checks, set her on edge. She approached, her voice clipped. Sir, I need your ID and boarding pass. Now. Jalen looked up, startled but polite. Sure. Here. He handed over his documents, his heart picking up pace. Karen scrutinized them, her eyes narrowing. This ticket looks off, she said, loud enough for nearby passengers to turn. I need to verify this. Jalen's brow furrowed. It's my ticket. I can show you the email confirmation. But Karen was already on her radio, her words sharp. Security. We have a potential stowaway in economy. Seat 23B. Gasps rippled through the cabin. A woman in a pink blazer whispered to her seatmate, "What's going on?" Jalen's face burned with embarrassment. He'd done nothing wrong, yet all eyes were on him. 2 airport police officers boarded, their dark uniforms imposing. "Step into the aisle, son," one said, not unkindly but firm. Jalen stood, his legs shaky. "I'm just going to my grandparents," he said, voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. The officers exchanged glances, unsure, and motioned for him to follow them off the plane. As Jalen stepped into the jetway, a tall figure emerged from the terminal's crowd. Captain Marcus Carter, in full police uniform, his badge gleaming, strode forward with a presence that silenced the murmurs. "What's happening here?" he demanded, his voice calm but laced with authority. The officers froze, recognizing him instantly. Jalen's relief was immediate. "Dad!" he whispered, his voice cracking. Marcus's eyes swept over the scene, his son, flanked by officers, and Karen, clutching her radio, her face paling. "Why is my son being escorted off this flight?" he asked, each word deliberate. Karen stammered. "His ticket. It seemed suspicious. I was just following protocol." Marcus pulled out his phone, displaying Jalen's itinerary and payment confirmation. "This is his ticket. I bought it. Explain why you assumed he didn't belong." The officers stepped back, one muttering, "We were just called to check, sir." Karen's confidence crumbled. "I thought he didn't look like he belonged in." Her voice trailed off under Marcus's piercing gaze. "You thought wrong," he said, his tones steel. "My son deserves an apology, and your airline needs to review how this happened." Passengers peeked from the plane's door, some recording on their phones. A man with a gray beard and a dark suit whispered, "That's Captain Carter. This is bad." The airline supervisor, alerted by the commotion, rushed over, promising a full investigation. Karen, flustered, offered a stiff apology. "I'm sorry, I misjudged." Marcus nodded, but his focus was on Jalen. "You okay, son?" Jalen nodded, swallowing hard. "Dad." The supervisor, eager to defuse the situation, upgraded Jalen to first class. As he returned to the plane, passengers clapped softly, some offering supportive smiles. Jalen took his new seat, 2A by the window, his heart still racing. The woman in the pink blazer leaned over. "You handled that like a champ," she said. Jalen managed a small smile, gazing out at the tarmac. The plane taxied, and as it lifted off, he felt a mix of relief and resolve. Mid-flight, a senior flight, Attendant Maria approached with a warm smile. "I heard what happened. You're a strong kid. Ever thought about flying planes?" Jalen's eyes lit up. "That's my dream. I want to be a pilot." Maria nodded. "Keep at it. You've got the heart for it." She slipped him a pilot's pin, a small gold wing, and whispered, "Don't let anyone dim your light." But the incident wasn't over. As the flight neared Atlanta, Jalen overheard Karen speaking in hushed tones to another crew member in the galley. "I don't care who his dad is," she muttered. Something's off about that kid. I saw him texting nonstop. What if he's planning something? The other crew member shrugged, but Jalen's stomach dropped. He hadn't been texting anyone but his dad and grandparents. Yet Karen's suspicion lingered like a shadow. When the plane landed, Jalen disembarked, the pilot's pin clutched in his hand. His grandparents waited at the gate, their faces lighting up. But as he hugged them, he noticed Karen watching from a distance, her phone pressed to her ear. Jalen's gut told him this wasn't the end. He texted Marcus, "Landed. She's still acting weird." Marcus replied instantly, "Stay sharp, I'm looking into it." Back in Chicago, Marcus dug deeper. As a police captain, he had contacts in airport security. He learned Karen had a history of flagging passengers based on vague suspicions, often targeting minorities. But this time, her actions had caught the attention of the airline's ethics board. Marcus filed a formal complaint, attaching Jalen's testimony and passenger videos from the flight. The airline launched an investigation, suspending Karen pending review. Meanwhile, in Atlanta, Jalen spent his days with his grandparents, exploring their farm and sharing his dreams of flight. But the incident gnawed at him. One night, he found an anonymous email in his inbox. "You think you're safe because of Daddy? Watch your back." His heart raced. Was it Karen? Someone else? He forwarded it to Marcus, who escalated it to cybercrime specialists. The investigation uncovered a shocking truth. Karen wasn't just a biased flight attendant, she was part of a small, rogue group within the airline's staff, using their positions to target passengers they deemed suspicious, for personal grudges or petty power plays. The anonymous email traced back to a burner account linked to one of Karen's co-workers, a disgruntled employee named Tim. When confronted, Tim confessed, claiming Karen had pressured him to teach Jalen a lesson for embarrassing her. The airline fired Karen and Tim, issuing a public apology to Jalen and Marcus. They offered Jalen a scholarship to a youth aviation program, a gesture Marcus accepted on his son's behalf. At a press conference, Jalen spoke, his voice steady. "I just wanted to fly to see my grandparents. I hope this teaches people to think before they judge." Months later, Jalen stood at the edge of a runway, his aviation program in full swing. He wore the pilot's pin Maria had given him, now a symbol of his resilience. Marcus watched from the sidelines, pride in his eyes. The incident had sparked a fire in Jalen, not just to fly planes, but to advocate for fairness. He started a blog, Skybound Dreams, sharing stories of young people overcoming prejudice to chase their goals. As Jalen stepped into a flight simulator, his instructor, a black woman pilot named Captain Nia Johnson, grinned. "You've got the makings of a great pilot," she said. Jalen nodded, his hands steady on the controls. The sky was his future, and no one could take that away. Jalen Carter, now 17, stood at the threshold of his aviation dreams. The youth aviation program in Atlanta had become his second home, a place where the hum of propellers and the scent of jet fuel fueled his ambition. Under Captain Nia Johnson's mentorship, Jalen excelled, mastering flight simulators and logging hours in small Cessnas. His blog, Skybound Dreams, had grown too, attracting thousands of followers inspired by his story of resilience. But the shadow of the incident on Flight 237 lingered, a quiet reminder that prejudice could strike anywhere. One crisp spring morning, Jalen received an invitation to speak at the National Aviation Youth Conference in Washington, D.C. It was a big deal. Hundreds of aspiring pilots, industry leaders, and media would attend. His topic? Breaking barriers in the skies. Jalen felt a mix of pride and nerves. "You've got this," Captain Nia told him, adjusting the gold pilot's pin on his jacket. "Tell your truth." Marcus, Jalen's father, insisted on flying with him. "Not letting you out of my sight this time," he said, half joking. His police captain's uniform traded for a sharp blazer. Jalen grinned, but the memory of Karen's suspicious glare and the anonymous email threat still gnawed at him. The airline had promised reforms, but Jalen wondered, had anything really changed? The conference venue buzzed with energy. Jalen, in a crisp navy suit, stood backstage, rehearsing his speech. His blog posts had gone viral, and whispers followed him, some admiring, others skeptical. "That's the kid from the airline incident," a teen pilot muttered to another. Jalen ignored them, focusing on his notes. As he took the stage, the crowd hushed. "I'm Jalen Carter," he began, voice steady. "A year ago, I was just a kid trying to visit my grandparents. But one flight attendant's snap judgment turned me into a suspect. He recounted the humiliation, his father's intervention, and the investigation that exposed Karen and Tim's misconduct. The skies should be for everyone, he said. But for some of us, even getting on the plane is a fight. The audience erupted in applause, but not everyone was moved. In the back, a man in a gray suit, his badge reading Aerosafe Security, scribbled notes, his expression unreadable. Jalen noticed him, a flicker of unease passing through him. After the speech, a reporter from Aviation Today approached. "Great talk, Jalen. We're hearing rumors of a new airline security policy tied to your case. Care to comment?" Jalen hesitated. "I just want fair treatment for everyone," he said. The reporter nodded, but Jalen sensed bigger forces at play. That evening, at the conference gala, Jalen mingled with pilots and aviation students, his confidence growing. Marcus, ever vigilant, kept an eye on the crowd. Then, Jalen spotted the man from Aerosafe again, now speaking heatedly with a woman in a sleek black dress. Her badge read, Elaine Voss, Airline Regulatory Board. Jalen edged closer, catching fragments of their conversation. "Carter's story is trouble," the man said. "If we tighten profiling protocols, it'll cost millions." Elaine replied, "Then we control the narrative. His blog can't keep driving this." Jalen's heart raced. Were they trying to silence him? He slipped away, texting Marcus, "Something's up." Overheard security guy and some board member. Marcus found him moments later. "Stay sharp, Jalen, I'll make some calls." Using his police contacts, Marcus dug into Aerosafe Security. What he found was chilling. Aerosafe, a contractor for multiple airlines, had a history of lobbying against stricter anti-profiling policies to cut costs. Elaine Voss was their liaison, pushing to maintain discretionary security measures that often targeted minorities. Back in Atlanta, Jalen couldn't shake the conversation he'd overheard. He posted a cryptic update on Skybound Dreams, spoke at the conference, learned some don't want change. The fight's not over. The post exploded with followers demanding details. One commenter, Skywatcher99, claimed to be an airline insider and messaged Jalen privately. "Aerosafe is bearing complaints like yours. I have files. Meet me?" Against Marcus's warnings, Jalen agreed to meet Skywatcher99 at a quiet Atlanta cafe. The insider, a nervous woman named Lila, was a former Aerosafe data analyst. She slid a USB drive across the table. "These are internal memos," she whispered. "They show Aerosafe pressured airlines to ignore profiling complaints to avoid lawsuits. Your case was just the tip." Jalen's hands trembled as he took the drive. "Why risk this?" he asked. Lila's eyes hardened. "Because I'm tired of them ruining lives to save money." Jalen and Marcus handed the files to a trusted journalist friend, Sarah Nguyen, who worked for the Atlanta Chronicle. Sarah's exposé, Aerosafe's Secret War on Fairness, hit the internet like a thunderbolt. It detailed how Aerosafe's policies led to hundreds of wrongful detentions, disproportionately affecting black and brown passengers. Jalen's story was the centerpiece, his face on every news outlet. Tests erupted outside Aerosafe's headquarters, and airlines dropped their contracts overnight. Elaine Voss resigned in disgrace, and Aerosafe's CEO faced congressional hearings. Jalen's blog became a rallying cry, with a reply fair trending globally. But the victory wasn't without cost. Threats flooded Jalen's inbox, and Marcus hired private security for their home. One night, Jalen found a note slipped under his door. "You can't change the sky." He showed it to Marcus, who hugged him tightly. "They're scared, son. That means you're winning." A year later, Jalen stood on a tarmac, his first solo flight in a Piper Cherokee complete. Captain Nia clapped him on the shoulder. "You're a natural, Carter." Jalen grinned, the pilot's pin gleaming on his chest. His blog had evolved into a non-profit, Skybound Justice, advocating for equitable travel policies. The FAA, spurred by the Aerosafe scandal, rolled out new training to prevent passenger profiling. At a community event, Jalen spoke to a crowd of young dreamers. "The sky doesn't care who you are," he said. "It's big enough for all of us." Marcus watched, his eyes misty. Later, over dinner, Jalen asked, "Dad, you think it's over?" Marcus shook his head. "Not over, son. But you've started something unstoppable." As Jalen looked up at the stars, he knew the fight for fairness would continue. But so would his dreams, higher, brighter, and boundless. Jalen Carter, now 18, stood taller, his shoulders squared with the confidence of a young man who had faced down giants. His nonprofit, Skybound Justice, had grown into a national movement, with chapters in 5 major cities advocating for fair treatment in air travel. His solo flight success had earned him a scholarship to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, and he was weeks away from starting his degree in aviation. But the threats that followed the AeroSafe scandal hadn't stopped. Anonymous messages, emails, letters, even graffiti near his Atlanta home kept Jalen and his father, Captain Marcus Carter, on edge. One humid August evening, Jalen sat in his room scrolling through Skybound Dreams. A new comment caught his eye. "You think you've won, kid? The skies aren't yours." The IP address was untraceable, but the tone matched the note from months ago. "You can't change the sky." Jalen's gut twisted. He showed the comment to Marcus, who was nursing a coffee at the kitchen table. "This isn't random," Marcus said, his police instincts kicking in. "Someone's still holding a grudge." Marcus's investigation into AeroSafe had uncovered a network of disgruntled ex-employees, some linked to Karen and Tim, who had formed an online group called True Sky. They spread conspiracies, claiming Jalen's movement was a front to disrupt aviation. Marcus suspected they were behind the threats. "We need to be proactive," he told Jalen. "You're heading to college soon. Let's shut this down before you go." Marcus enlisted his old friend, Detective Lena Hayes, a cybercrime specialist with the Atlanta PD. Lena traced True Sky's online activity to a private server in Dallas. "These guys aren't just venting," she warned. "They're planning something. Maybe targeting you or Skybound Justice events." Jalen's next speaking engagement was at a youth rally in Miami, hosted by the FAA to promote their new anti-profiling policies. Lena proposed a sting. "Use the rally to draw out True Sky's leaders." Jalen hesitated. "I just want to focus on flying, Dad. Not more drama." Marcus put a hand on his shoulder. "I know, son, but you're a symbol now. We finish this. You fly free." Jalen nodded, resolve hardening. He posted about the Miami rally on his blog, Baiting True Sky. "Join us to see how we're changing the skies. Everyone's welcome." In Miami, the rally buzzed with hundreds of teens, pilots, and activists. Jalen took the stage, his voice steady as he shared his journey. "They tried to ground me," he said, "but I'm still here, and so are you. Let's keep the skies open for all." The crowd roared, but Jalen's eyes scanned for anything off. Lena's team, undercover in the audience, monitored for True Sky members. Halfway through, a man in a baseball cap lingered near the stage, typing furiously on his phone. Lena's team flagged him. Another, a woman with a backpack, hovered near the sound booth. As Jalen wrapped up, Lena texted him. "We've got them. Stay put." The man and woman were quietly detained, their phones revealing True Sky's plan. A coordinated cyber attack to hack Skybound Justice's website and leak Jalen's personal info during the rally. In a Miami PD interrogation room, the man, identified as Greg Holt, a former AeroSafe contractor, cracked under pressure. "It wasn't personal," he insisted. "Karen and Tim got us riled up. Said Carter was ruining our industry." The woman, Mia Delgado, admitted to planting the threatening notes to scare Jalen into silence. True Sky's network, they revealed, had dozens of members, ex-airline staff, security contractors, even a few low-level pilots, united by resentment over the industry's reforms. Lena's team seized True Sky's server, exposing hundreds of messages plotting to discredit Jalen. The FBI took over, charging Holt, Delgado, and others with cyberstalking and conspiracy. The news broke nationally, with Skybound Justice hailed as a catalyst for accountability. Jalen, though relieved, felt the weight of it all. "I just wanted to fly," he told Captain Nia over FaceTime. She smiled. "You are, Jalen, but you're also clearing the runway for others." Weeks later, Jalen arrived at Embry-Riddle, his dorm room a mix of flight manuals and Skybound Justice posters. Marcus helped him unpack, his pride evident. "You've done more than most at your age," he said. Jalen shrugged. "I just want to be a pilot now." Marcus laughed. "You will. But you're also a leader." Jalen's first flight lesson at Embry-Riddle was in a Diamond DA-40, a sleek single-engine plane. As he climbed into the cockpit, the instructor, a grizzled veteran named Captain Ruiz, nodded. "Heard about you, Carter. Let's see if you fly as well as you fight." Jalen grinned, gripping the yoke. The plane roared down the runway, lifting into the Florida sky. For the first time in months, Jalen felt free. No threats, no suspicions, just the horizon. Below, Marcus watched the plane climb, a speck against the clouds. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. True Sky's last members rounded up. Case closed. Marcus smiled, texting Jalen. Clear skies, son. By spring, Jalen was a rising star at Embry-Riddle, acing exams and logging flight hours. Skybound Justice had hired a team to run day-to-day operations, letting Jalen focus on his studies. His blog posts now mixed aviation tips with stories of other young pilots overcoming barriers. At a campus event, he met Aisha, a black female, student pilot who'd read his blog. "You made me believe I could do this," she said. Jalen blushed. "Just keep flying," he told her. One evening, Jalen got a call from Sarah Nguyen, the journalist. "The FAA's naming a scholarship after you," she said. "The Jalen Carter Fair Skies Fund. How's it feel?" Jalen laughed, stunned. "Weird, but good." The scholarship would support underrepresented teens in aviation, a legacy Jalen hadn't imagined. As he walked across campus, the pilot's pin from Maria gleaming on his jacket, Jalen looked up at the stars. The threats were gone, True Sky dismantled, and the skies were opening wider every day. He wasn't just flying toward his dream, he was building a world where everyone could soar. Jalen Carter, now 19 and in his second year at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, soared through his flight training with the precision of a hawk. His name was synonymous with change in the aviation world, thanks to the Jalen Carter Fair Skies Fund and Skybound Justice. The scholarship had already sent 10 underrepresented teens to flight school, and Jalen's blog, Skybound Dreams, was a beacon for aspiring pilots worldwide. But success, he was learning, came with new challenges. One chilly February evening, Jalen sat in his dorm, reviewing flight logs, when his phone buzzed with an email marked urgent. The sender was anonymous, but the subject line froze his blood. "You can't hide in the clouds." The message read, "You think True Sky's gone? We're watching. Step back, or your wings get clipped." Attached was a grainy photo of Jalen walking across campus, taken from a distance. His heart pounded. He thought True Sky was finished. Arrests, convictions, case closed. Had someone slipped through? Jalen called his father, Captain Marcus Carter, now a deputy chief in the Chicago PD. "Dad, it's happening again," he said, forwarding the email. Marcus's voice was calm but urgent. "Stay put, Jalen. I'm contacting Lena." Detective Lena Hayes, their ally from the True Sky sting, was on the case within hours. She traced the email to a VPN, but the photo's metadata pointed to Daytona Beach, Jalen's campus. "This is close," Lena warned. "Could be someone local." Jalen kept a low profile, sticking to classes and flight training. But the sense of being watched grew. During a night flight lesson, he noticed a drone hovering near the airfield, its red lights blinking ominously. His instructor, Captain Ruiz, dismissed it as a hobbyist, but Jalen wasn't convinced. He confided in Aisha, his friend and fellow student pilot, who'd become a close ally. "This feels personal," he told her, showing her the email. Aisha's eyes narrowed. "We need to figure out who's behind this. You're not alone." Together they scoured campus for clues. Aisha, tech-savvy from her robotics club days, suggested checking security footage near where the photo was taken. With help from a sympathetic campus security officer, they pinpointed the spot, a courtyard near the aviation building. The footage showed a figure in a hoodie, face obscured, holding a camera. "That's no student," Aisha said. "Look at the build. Too old." Jalen's blog posts had recently criticized a local aviation contractor, Skypulse Solutions, for cutting corners on pilot training for profit. Could they be connected? He shared the theory with Lena, who dug into Skypulse. Her findings were alarming. Skypulse's CEO, Victor Crane, had ties to former True Sky members, including a cousin who'd been arrested in the sting. "Crane's got motive," Lena said. "Your scholarship's pulling students away from his overpriced programs." Lena proposed another sting, this time using Jalen's next Skybound Justice event, a flight school open house at Embry-Riddle, as bait. "If Crane or his people are behind this, they'll show," she said. Marcus flew to Florida, his deputy chief badge gleaming, to oversee security. Jalen was nervous, but resolute. "Let's end this," he told his dad. The open house drew hundreds, teens, parents, and aviation leaders. Jalen gave a speech, announcing 3 new Fair Skies scholarships. As he spoke, Aisha monitored the crowd from a control room, watching live feeds with Lena's team. Near the refreshment tent, a man in a gray jacket lingered, his phone angled at Jalen. Aisha zoomed in. Same build as the courtyard figure. "Got him," she whispered into her headset. Lena's team moved in, detaining the man, who identified himself as Paul Decker, a Skypulse contractor. His phone held dozens of photos of Jalen, plus texts to an unlisted number. "Carter's speech is live. Ready to post?" Decker clammed up, but Lena's cyber team traced the number to Victor Crane. A search warrant revealed Crane's plan, a smear campaign to discredit Jalen, linking him to fake radical groups to scare off donors and tank skybound justice. Crane was arrested for cyberstalking and conspiracy, his company's reputation in tatters. The news hit hard. Skybound Dreams posted the story, titled "Clearing the Skies Again." Donations poured into the Fair Skies Fund, and Embry-Riddle offered Jalen a leadership role in their diversity outreach program. He accepted, balancing it with his studies, but the victory felt bittersweet. At a quiet dinner with Marcus and Aisha, Jalen admitted, "I'm tired of fighting. I just want to fly." Marcus nodded. "You've earned that, son. But you're making the skies safer for everyone." Aisha raised her glass. "To Jalen, the pilot who won't quit." By summer, Jalen was a licensed private pilot, his first major milestone. He took Aisha up in a Cessna 172, the Florida coast sparkling below. "This is what it's about," he said, grinning as he banked the plane. Aisha laughed. "You're gonna be a captain someday." Back on the ground, Jalen got a call from Sarah Nagian, the journalist. "The FAA's expanding your scholarship nationwide," she said. "You're changing the game, Jalen." He smiled, looking at the pilot's pin from Maria, now worn but cherished. The threats had stopped, Crane's network dismantled, and skybound justice was stronger than ever. That night, Jalen stood on the tarmac, staring at the stars. Marcus joined him, silent for a moment. "You did more than change the skies, son," he said. "You showed the world what courage looks like." Jalen nodded, his eyes on the horizon. The fight had shaped him, but the sky was his home. And it was finally, truly, his to claim. Jalen Carter, now 20, was no longer just a student pilot. His name echoed through aviation circles as a symbol of change. His Skybound Justice nonprofit a force for equity in the skies. At Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, he balanced his aeronautics degree with leadership in the Jalen Carter Fair Skies Fund, which had grown to support 50 underrepresented students across the U.S. His private pilot's license was a badge of pride, but his sights were set on a commercial license. The skies were his calling, yet the past refused to stay buried. One stormy April evening, Jalen was in the flight school's hangar, prepping a Cessna for a training flight, when his phone buzzed with a news alert. Skypulse Solutions files lawsuit against Skybound Justice. Victor Crane, the disgraced CEO arrested for orchestrating threats against Jalen, had been released on bail. Now, he was suing Jalen's nonprofit for defamation, claiming the exposé that tanked his company was based on fabricated evidence. The article quoted Crane, "Carter's a fraud, stirring up trouble to profit off his so-called movement." Jalen's stomach churned. He called his father, Marcus, now a regional commander with the Chicago PD. "Dad, Crane's back. He's coming for us." Marcus's voice was steady but grim. "He's desperate, Jalen. We'll fight this. Call Lena." Detective Lena Hayes, their cybercrime ally, confirmed Crane's lawsuit was a long shot but dangerous. "He's got a new lawyer, some hotshot named Diana Kessler," Lena said. "She's known for twisting narratives, and there's chatter online. True Sky's remnants are rallying behind Crane." The lawsuit sparked a firestorm. Social media platforms buzzed with Rochester Crane vs. Carter, and a new True Sky-linked account, Sky Truth Now, posted doctored screenshots of Jalen's blog, painting him as an extortionist who faked his Flight 237 ordeal for fame. Trolls flooded Skybound Dreams with hate, accusing Jalen of playing the race card. Donations to the Fair Skies Fund slowed, and some scholarship recipients faced harassment at their flight schools. Jalen confided in Aisha, his closest friend and fellow pilot. "This is bigger than before," he said, showing her the latest Sky Truth Now post. a deepfake video of Jalen admitting to fabricating his story. Aisha's eyes blazed. "They're scared of you, Jalen. That's why they're hitting this hard. We need to hit back." She suggested a counter-campaign, using Skybound Justice's platform to share stories from scholarship recipients, proving the fund's impact. With Marcus's approval, Jalen and Aisha worked with Sarah Nguyen, the Atlanta Chronicle journalist, to release a documentary short. Titled Wings of Justice, it featured Fair Skies students, Black, Latino, and Native teens, sharing how the scholarship changed their lives. The video went viral, countering Crane's narrative. But Kessler, Crane's lawyer, doubled down, subpoenaing Jalen's personal emails and flight school records, claiming they'd prove his deceptions. The lawsuit went to trial in Miami, a media circus. Jalen, in a Navy suit, sat beside his lawyer, Maria Torres, a civil rights attorney recommended by Lena. Marcus and Aisha were in the gallery, their presence a quiet strength. Crane, gaunt, but defiant, took the stand, spinning a tale of a vindictive teen who ruined his business. Kessler presented the deepfake video, claiming it was leaked evidence. Jalen's heart sank as murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Maria countered with forensic evidence from Lena's team, proving the video was fake. She called Fair Skies recipients to testify, their stories of overcoming prejudice moving the jury. Jalen took the stand, his voice clear. "I never wanted fame," he said. "I wanted to fly. But when they tried to ground me, I fought back, not just for me, but for everyone who deserves a chance." A juror wiped away a tear. The turning point came when Lena testified, revealing Crane's ties to Sky Truth Now. She presented server logs showing he'd paid hackers to create the deepfake. The judge, visibly angered, dismissed the case, ruling in favor of Skybound Justice. Crane was ordered to pay damages, and new charges for evidence tampering loomed. Outside the courthouse, supporters chanted Jalen's name. He hugged Marcus, whispering, "We did it." As the dust settled, Jalen received an email from an unexpected source. Karen, the flight attendant from Flight 237. "I was wrong," she wrote. "I've followed your work. I want to help." Skeptical, Jalen met her at a neutral spot, a coffee shop near campus. Karen, now working in retail, looked worn. "I lost everything after that day," she admitted. "But I see now what I did to you. Let me speak for Skybound Justice. I know how the system fails people." Jalen was stunned but saw sincerity in her eyes. With Marcus's cautious approval, Karen joined the nonprofit as a volunteer, sharing her story at events to highlight the need for reform. Her redemption arc, featured in a Skybound Dreams post, softened some critics, though Jalen remained wary. "Trust is earned," he told Aisha, who nodded. "But change is real." By his third year, Jalen was a commercial pilot candidate, logging hours in multi-engine planes. The Fair Skies Fund expanded globally, partnering with aviation schools in Africa and South America. At a gala celebrating the fund's 5th anniversary, Jalen stood beside Marcus, Aisha, and Captain Nia, now a mentor and board member. Karen, in the audience, clapped with tears in her eyes. Jalen's speech was simple. "The sky doesn't judge. It's our job to make sure the ground doesn't either." The crowd rose, applauding. Later, he took Marcus up in a Piper Seminole, the stars above mirroring the lights of Daytona Beach. "You proud, Dad?" Jalen asked. Marcus smiled. "Always, son. You didn't just fly. You changed the world." As Jalen banked the plane, the horizon stretched endless before him. The threats, the lawsuits, the battles, they'd shaped him, but they hadn't defined him. The sky was his, and he'd make sure it belonged to everyone. Jalen Carter, now 22, stood on the cusp of his dream. With his commercial pilot's license in hand, he was a senior at Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, set to graduate with honors. The Jalen Carter Fair Skies Fund had transformed aviation, supporting over 200 underrepresented students worldwide, from Nairobi to Bogota. Skybound Justice was a global force, its advocacy leading to stricter FAA anti-profiling regulations and mandatory bias training for airline staff. Jalen's blog, Skybound Dreams, had millions of followers, a testament to his journey from a humiliated teen on Flight 237 to a beacon of change. But peace was fragile. Victor Crane's lawsuit had been crushed, and his True Sky allies were behind bars, yet whispers of a final retaliation lingered. In early May 2025, as Jalen prepared for his first job interview with a major airline, Delta, He received a cryptic text. "The skies will never be yours. Watch the clouds." No sender, no trace. Jalen showed it to his father, Marcus, now retired from the Chicago PD but still his son's fiercest protector. "They're out of moves," Marcus said, though his eyes betrayed worry. "Let's finish this." Jalen called Detective Lena Hayes, who'd become a close family friend. Lena's cyber team traced the text to a burner phone purchased in Miami, near Embry-Riddle. "Could be a lone wolf," she said. "Someone inspired by True Sky's rhetoric." With Jalen's graduation and Delta interview days away, they couldn't take chances. Lena coordinated with campus security and the FAA, setting up surveillance around Jalen's final flight exam, a multi-engine check ride that would certify him for airline cockpits. The morning of the check ride, Jalen arrived at the Embry-Riddle airfield, his friend Aisha by his side. She'd earned her commercial license too, and was headed to a regional airline. "You nervous?" she asked, adjusting her aviator sunglasses. Jalen grinned. "Not about flying, about what's next." His examiner, Captain Ruiz, now a mentor, clapped his shoulder. "You're ready, Carter. Let's get you in the sky." But as Jalen pre-flighted the Beechcraft Baron, he noticed a faint oil sheen under the left engine. His training kicked in. He checked the cowling and found a loosened oil line, subtle but deliberate. Sabotage. His heart raced. "Someone's here," he whispered to Aisha, who alerted campus security. Lena's team swept the airfield, finding a hidden camera in the hangar, streaming live to an encrypted server. The feed was cut, and a search revealed a local mechanic, Ethan Walsh, a former Sky Pulse employee with a grudge against skybound justice. He confessed under pressure. A True Sky sympathizer had paid him to tamper with the plane, hoping to derail Jalen's exam. The FAA grounded the plane, and Jalen's check ride was rescheduled for the next day. Walsh was arrested, his confession tying up the last thread of True Sky's network. Lena called Jalen that night. "It's over, for real this time. We've got everyone." Jalen exhaled, the weight lifting. "Thanks, Lena, for everything." Graduation day dawned bright, the Embry-Riddle campus alive with celebration. Jalen, in his cap and gown, stood with Aisha and his family, Marcus, his grandparents, and even Karen, the former flight attendant, now a skybound justice advocate. As Jalen crossed the stage to accept his degree, the crowd roared, chanting, "Fair skies!" His pilot's pin, given by Maria years ago, gleamed on his lapel. In his valedictory speech, Jalen spoke from the heart. "4 years ago, I was just a kid trying to board a plane. They saw me as a threat, but I saw a dream. Today, because of all of you, that dream is real. Not just for me, but for hundreds of others. The sky doesn't belong to one of us. It belongs to all of us." Tears streaked Marcus's face, and Aisha squeezed Jalen's hand backstage. Karen, in the audience, stood to applaud, her redemption complete. Days later, Jalen aced his Delta interview, landing a first officer position on their Airbus A320 fleet. His first flight was scheduled from Atlanta to Chicago, a poetic return to where it all began. Marcus, Aisha, and Captain Nia saw him off at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. As Jalen boarded in his crisp Delta uniform, a passenger, a young black teen, stared in awe. "You're Jalen Carter, right?" he asked. Jalen smiled. "Just a pilot. What's your dream?" The boy grinned. "To fly, like you." In the cockpit, Jalen settled into the right seat, the captain nodding approvingly. "Ready, First Officer Carter?" Jalen checked his instruments, the horizon clear. "Ready, sir." The plane climbed, piercing the clouds, and Jalen felt a peace he'd fought years for. Below, Marcus watched the jet vanish into the sky, whispering, "That's my boy." Months later, Jalen stood at a skybound justice gala in Washington, D.C., where the FAA honored him with a Lifetime Achievement Award at 22. The Fair Skies Fund was now a global institution, and Jalen had passed the nonprofit's reins to Aisha, trusting her to carry the torch. He focused on flying, logging hours toward his captain's bars, but his legacy was set. A world where the skies welcomed everyone. At the gala, Jalen reunited with Sarah Nguyen, Lena, and even Maria, the flight attendant who'd given him the pilot's pin. Karen approached, her voice soft. "I'm proud to know you, Jalen." He nodded, forgiving her fully. "We all grow," he said. That night, Jalen flew a red-eye to Chicago, the stars bright above. He thought of Flight 237, of True Sky, of every battle won. The sky was his home, and he'd made it a home for others. As the plane leveled off, Jalen smiled, his hands steady on the controls. The journey was complete, but the sky was endless. The end.